All right, here we go. Heads up, I'm recording this while I drive. That's the point I've reached. I'm going to start making audio recordings while I drive. Here's why. I have no time anymore. That's not true. I have some time, but I don't have as much time as I used to have. And so being creative is, I just have to find every possible minute I can. And I drive like 45 minutes to work every day and 45 minutes back. So this is the time to do it. And you're going to hear road noise probably. And I don't care. I don't do anything with my audio. I don't clean it up. I don't edit. Partially because audio is not even my passion. I don't know why I do this. It's not true. I do know why I do this. I shout into the ether, ostensibly. That's what it appears to do. But not really. You know, I used to, back in the Evco Productions days, when Jer and I were doing the podcast, I used to say all the time, I'd say, I don't need an audience. I don't care if anybody listens to my stuff. I'm doing this for fun. Obviously, that was a lie, okay? But these days, I feel a bit more aware of the direction and the purpose for doing things. You know how 100 years ago, 200 years ago, whenever it was, there would be like monarchs and they would like commission artists to paint pictures of them or whatever? I think that's the purpose of art. I think the purpose of art is to receive very little validation only because you only need a little validation to be an artist. If you need a lot of validation to be an artist, you're not an artist. You're doing it to make money. And I think that all of us on this earth who are artists, we're meant to have just one or two people, probably, who really connect with our stuff and get something of value out of it. And so I'm not cleaning up my audio because I don't care to learn how to clean up my audio, because the audio quality is not the point of these. I feel that I have things to say, as we all do, and I feel like one or two people out there will resonate with it, and that's it. And the people who will resonate with it will not care if there's the sound of me driving on the highway as I talk. So that's where I'm coming from. And you know what's great? Here's the upside of AI. There is an upside. The upside is AI has made everything look so squeaky clean that now things looking good is like a turnoff to a lot of people. You know, AI looks like airbrushed on top of airbrushed. That's the best way to describe it, I think. And because it looks like that, well, now the rest of us who can't afford good recording equipment and don't have the time to use it anyway, like, we can just record shit on our phones while we drive, and, you know, it may not be good, quote unquote, whatever that means. It may not be objectively good art, but at least it's not AI. And so I got that going for me. But that's not even what I wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about demons, because in the last video I sort of casually mentioned how demons are real and sort of went into how horror movies depict demons and demonic activity and all that sort of thing. And so I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that, because that's not coming from out of nowhere. Like, I have experiences that have led me to believe that demons are real. And before we really dive into that, I'll give a little background so that you understand, like, what the theories that I'm working off of are. Like, what is my language and what is my understanding of this stuff based in? Where do my explanations come from? resonate with Rudolf Steiner's ideas. So if you don't know, Rudolf Steiner was an occultist, and he basically, you know how Carl Jung had the collective unconscious? Carl Jung was a psychiatrist, obviously, psychologist, and he believed that dreams come from the collective unconscious. So basically, there's a realm where all of humanity is like tapped into it, this realm, via the imagination, via their minds, their subconscious minds. And dreams are like messages or ideas that come from the collective unconscious, and that's why so many people have like the same types of dreams. So Rudolf Steiner had his own version of this. It was called the Akashic Records, and he basically used the Akashic Record theory / collective unconscious theory to claim that he understood a ton of shit that nobody else had ever cracked before, or at least not cracked in the same way that he had. And I'm talking wild schizo shit, like Atlantis shit, okay? And I'm not saying I believe in all that. I'm not saying I don't believe in all that either. And by the way, I may also get some of the verbiage wrong. I don't claim to be a Rudolf Steiner expert or a Carl Jung expert. All I'm saying is that I've read a little bit of their stuff and their ideas resonate with me, okay? That's all I'm saying. But anyway, Rudolf Steiner had a lot of ideas about spiritual evolution, which I really like. He kind of believed, basically, bare bones version, that there was both a physical evolution and a spiritual evolution. So you actually see an evolution of consciousness and of spirit the further you go into the history of humanity. So like way back at the beginning, to really simplify things, and this is not exactly what he said, this is sort of my own spin on it, but imagine that God was a brain floating in outer space. You know Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Obviously Ego's a villain. Sort of a bastardization of God when you think about it. It's sort of blasphemous. I wonder if that's, wonder if there's anything there. But anyway, Rudolf Steiner would have probably said something like this. He would have said God was a brain floating in space, and that's the origin of everything. The brain just started thinking stuff up. And as it thought stuff up, that stuff slowly solidified. And that was evolution. So everything was a thought first. And then the thoughts sort of began to take form. And they were like this watery shape, not really physical. But then slowly over time, as the brain thought harder and harder, and its ideas got more and more concrete, then the thoughts literally took physical form. And so everything in the world has been dreamed, literally, by the giant brain that is God. And now we've evolved so far past our watery thought forms that we don't even remember it. And we can't even imagine what God is. We think God is a man up in the clouds. We can't picture anything besides that. But really God is like a source more than he is a person. So this is important to understand because in terms of demons, it really doesn't matter if you think demons are like actual entities, like little red devils, or if they're just like thoughts, you know? A lot of atheists and agnostics like to reason that religion was born out of people not understanding psychology or not understanding science. And Rudolf Steiner would have been more about like marrying the two of them. He literally called himself a spiritual scientist. He wanted to unify magic and science and the ideas. It's one of my favorite quotes from the movie Thor, the first movie, where Natalie Portman says magic is just science we don't understand. That's a very Rudolf Steiner thing. So, demons, I said this in my last video, demons are either monsters, literal physical monsters, or they are our mental struggles. They are depression, trauma, addiction, rage, all of these things that are just kind of a hassle to live with for human beings. And it doesn't really matter if you think that demons are literal or metaphorical in that sense, or both, you know? Demons might be weaponizing these negative emotions and negative experiences. Or they might be thought forms. You know, maybe addiction is a thought form, and that's a demon, you know? And the point that we want to get from all this is that it just doesn't matter how you see it. Okay? However you see it, doesn't matter, because, as we'll get into, the way to beat a demon does not change, no matter what. No matter whether you see it as physical or not. And by the way, did you know that people who want to work with demons actually say it doesn't matter? Aleister Crowley, one of the biggest occultists of the last 200 years, was quoted as saying it doesn't matter whether these entities are real or not. All that matters is when you do certain things, you get certain results. That's paraphrasing, but that is what he said about working with demons. He was doing black magic. So a black magician says it doesn't matter if demons are literally real or not. So just take that into account as well. Anyway, my experiences with demons. My experiences with demons are not very dramatic by any means, but they're just enough to be, I think, a really solid example of how to deal with demons. How do we deal with demons? Well, even if they are real, clearly they're of some higher dimension or frequency or whatever you want to call it, because I've never seen one with my eyes open in broad daylight. So as far as I know, you can't really take demons on in, sword and shield battle. Maybe you could at some point in the past, I don't know, and maybe you will again at some point in the future. Who's to say? But all I know is that for me right now, I've never had it out with a demon, and I don't expect to anytime soon. But I do think that demons can be and should be battled on the mental plane, on the spiritual plane. And hopefully you can just take what I've said already and let your imagination run with this and begin to connect the dots for yourself. Because I know I'm not great at explaining it. Like I said, there's only one or two people out there who will resonate with what I say. But it's kind of like the imagination itself is the spirit realm, And whatever you choose to spend your time thinking about, that's what you get. So if you are thinking about shitty things, then you're going to get shitty things. So don't think about shitty things, because then you're going to get demons. That's why Bob Marley said, don't worry about a thing. And I'm not joking either. I'm serious. That's why Bob Marley said that. He knew this shit. You don't get to Bob Marley status without knowing this shit. Just FYI. But, so, when I was, I don't remember when this started. I was a kid, teenager, but I used to have sleep paralysis like a motherfucker, man. I used to wake up in the middle of the night, and sleep paralysis is when your brain wakes up, but your body doesn't, and it's not even really that your brain is woken up. Your brain's only half awake. It's just aware enough of its surroundings to be called kind of awake. But you're not fully awake because you can't move. And I would see things, man. I would see the upside down, kind of. But then this was pre-Stranger Things. But I would literally see, dark vines and shit on the walls of my bedroom. I know Stranger Things was apparently ripped off of somebody else's ideas. The Duffer Brothers were crooks. But I don't know. Somebody involved with that show knew what's up. Because the upside down's real. The back rooms are real. But I think it looks more like the upside down than it does the back rooms. And the demons live, at least in my experience. So I used to get sleep paralysis, and I would wake up and I'd see shit and I'd hear shit. And it's remarkable how movies seep into your subconscious, and then your brain uses the images in your subconscious to translate what is going on around it. Because I don't think, like, here's what I'm about to tell you. I'm about to tell you that I battled Pennywise. But I don't think it was Pennywise, obviously. I think it was my brain unable to translate the demon I was seeing. I think I would have gone mad. I think you would go mad if you see an interdimensional being as they actually are. That's what H.P. Lovecraft was telling us. You know, you see Cthulhu, your brain can't comprehend it, you go insane. Okay? And so I think that your brain uses images that it knows and can equate with demons to disguise demons for you so that you don't go insane when you see them. So one time, I get sleep paralysis, and it's worse than before because it's just more intense. The darkness is more thick around me. And I don't see it because I don't want to open my eyes, to tell you the truth. If I open my eyes, I may have seen it. But I just feel, I'm laying on my side, my left side is turned upward, and I feel the thing just breathing on my ear. Like there's something there. And it has the voice of Pennywise. And it's speaking to me. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember what it said. It's probably locked into my subconscious somewhere. But, you know, I wasn't awake enough to really retain the full memory. And I couldn't move. And I don't know how long it lasted. It might have been seconds, it might have been minutes. But you know, when you're in the thrall of this, it just feels like it's never going to end. It feels like you're in hell. And that the torture, the mental torture of having some predator breathing on your ear is never going to end. And whispering, I don't know what, satanic shit. And I don't know how I thought to do this. It was probably divine intervention from above. But the only, like, I couldn't even really think of myself as myself in this moment. I couldn't even recall all my memories. I was just so fuzzy. I was so out of it. But the one thing that I could remember was the tune to a song that I used to sing as a kid when I went to church. Da 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 da. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. So I don't know why I thought to do this. I didn't think to do this. It just came out. But I start humming that. And the demon screeches, man. Like in pain. It's like I lit it on fire. And so I just double down on that. I keep humming it over and over and over and over. I can't think of the rest of the song. I'm just humming the main verse. And then the next thing I know, presence is gone. The dark presence has dissipated. And then I just have to sit there. I keep my eyes closed. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to know anything right now. And I just wait for the sleep paralysis to pass. I wait to fully wake up so that I can move. But that was, I had sleep paralysis for years, but that was the only time that I really, like, battled a demon. And so what do you take away from that? Well, here's what I think you should take away from that. Regardless of whether demons have any physical qualities at all, it seems undeniable that you can battle them mentally and spiritually. You can battle them using just your mind. Okay? If you sing a song that means something to you deep down, it like symbolizes spirituality or purity or goodness, and I really think it could be any song. It doesn't have to be like a Christian song, but I think it has to be an old song. Like, it has to be a song that you heard years and years ago and was really, like, just ingrained in your very bones. I think it has to be that kind of song. But, like, music is a weapon against the demonic hordes. That's what you take away from that story. So that's one way to battle demons. I've only battled one other demon, and when I say battle, like, well, okay, if a demon is addiction or trauma or something, then we're all battling demons every day. But you know what I mean. I've only battled one other demon in the sense that I've only, like, had that kind of clear, balls to the walls, in your face, like, oh shit, there's something in the room type of feeling before. You know what I mean? Normally, when you're battling, like, daily struggles, you don't really think of them as there's something in the room. You know, that little animalistic panic feeling, that instinct doesn't kick in, the hair on the back of your neck doesn't raise. So maybe the demons are there from day to day, but normally you don't really understand that. So the one other time that I truly battled a demon, I felt him in the room, was I was meditating. This was probably 3 years ago. I was meditating, and I was like, this was the first time that I actually got into something like a trance state via nothing but breath work. So, like, kind of yoga type shit, I guess. Like, you focus on your breathing, and you, what is it? I think you breathe in for 8 seconds, breathe out for 6, hold it for 8 seconds, something like that. But whatever. Point is, I had worked myself into some kind of trance state, and so I was less aware of my physical body than I think I've ever been while awake, fully awake. Because it was the middle of the day. And I'm just in my bedroom, in the corner, meditating. And then, in my mind's eye, I'm able suddenly to see what's around me. I can't see very far. You know, some people talk about, like, astral projection, seeing what's in other rooms, seeing what's in other states, other countries. Again, kind of goes back to that Stranger Things idea of, like, trying to spy on the Soviets from the other side of the world using telepathy. But I could see my bedroom because I knew my bedroom very well. So in my mind's eye, I was very aware of everything that was in my bedroom. I was even aware that somebody, I think it was my mom, actually walked in, saw that I was meditating, and then decided not to disturb me and walked back out. And I saw that without opening my eyes. I was aware of that. So, at some point deep into this trance state, which lasted about, probably half an hour at least, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, a demon crawls up to me. I don't know where it came from, but it crawled right up to me. And it looks sort of like, I've never watched Game of Thrones, but it looks like the blue guys from Game of Thrones, the ice creatures, whatever the hell, the Jotunheim is what they look like, kind of. But he just kind of sat there, crouched on all fours. And, you know, it's remarkable. Again, like, I'd never watched Game of Thrones. I was never interested in it. But it's remarkable what your subconscious will do to, like, translate demonic activity for you so that you don't go insane. It translated it as this random ass. I'd seen the poster one time. And so I knew what this thing looked like on a subconscious level. And that's what my brain chose to plant over the actual image of the demon. And so he reaches out for me, but he can't touch me. This is very interesting. Demons can't touch you. Do you know that? You have to give them permission. That's why you have to, in the vampire mythology, you have to give vampires permission to come inside. It's because demons can't touch you without your permission. You have to, like, I don't mean your literal verbal permission, but you have to, like, succumb to their presence on a level that I just hadn't. I don't think I ever have, thank God. But the demon tried to touch me. But really, he was just there. He couldn't do anything, and he wanted to freak me out. And I think that's how he would, eventually be able to touch me. Is like, if you pay him too much attention and you freak out, then eventually you will have acknowledged him to such a degree that he will be given the power to reach you. But this is what I want to talk about. First Nightmare on Elm Street. I mentioned this in my last video. The first Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the greatest cinematic example I can think of how you kick a demon out of your room. At the very end, Freddy is rising up out of the bed. He's going to attack Nancy. And Nancy, after having tried to destroy him with all her little house traps, she finally just turns her back on him. And she says, I take away every bit of energy I gave you. You're bullshit. You're nothing. And then Freddy, like, cries out in pain and he disappears. Now, I already said this in the last video, but the bullshit thing about Nightmare on Elm Street is that it ruins its perfect demonstration of how you defeat a demon, because the ending is like your classic Hollywood horror movie, we got to start a franchise ending, and it's implied Freddy is still alive and he's going to get all of them after all. Okay, so that's stupid. Ignore the actual ending of Nightmare on Elm Street. Stop watching the movie after Nancy defeats Freddy. That's the ending. Okay, but that's how you defeat a demon. And so that's all I could think to do. Was I was very aware of the demon, and I knew that if I opened my eyes and ended the trance state that I would be okay, but I didn't want to do that. I was a little cocky, to tell you the truth. I was like, can I fucking kick this guy out of my room without just waking up and severing the astral connection? And I did. I don't mind saying, I don't mind bragging. It was close. It was close there for a while, but basically it was like this mental battle of just like, he's going to sit there and he's not going to move. He's just going to keep staring at me, arm outreached. And I remember my breath was picking up, and it was not of my own volition at all. Like it was very trance statey. And I had to fight the urge to open my eyes. And I had to fight the urge to panic, because I knew that if I just sat there and calmed down, if I was able to get my breath back under control, then the demon would be defeated and he would go away. And it took some minutes, it felt like. But that's exactly what happened. I Nightmare on Elm Streeted his ass. And he went away. And so these are the two demonic encounters I have had, but both of them kind of teach the same thing. Demons can be exorcised by anybody. You don't have to be a fucking Catholic priest with holy water. Okay? That's some propaganda, some church propaganda. They want you to think you have to call an exorcist because they want you to think that you can fuck up an exorcism and make the demonic possession or the demonic encounter worse. No. You don't need the church. Nobody has ever needed the church, okay? All you need is your own will. And maybe a meaningful song. And that's how you kick a fucking demon's ass. Alright. I'm about to pull into work, so that's all for now.